Annie, welcome to the show. It's lovely to have you here. How are you?
I'm wonderful, and all the better for seeing and talking to you today, Maria, as well.
Fantastic. I always get a little bit nervous, actually. In fact, my hands are sweating because you are a professional broadcaster and presenter. So I always feel I have to raise my game. So I might be a little bit nervous today, Annie. I feel like I'm being interviewed.
Well, don't worry, Maria. I'll put you at ease, which is half the battle, isn't it, as a presenter, anyway?
It's absolutely half the battle. Thank you. So there's so much in your introduction. You do so much. You've done so much. And the bit that interests me, actually, because it relates to what we're doing now, you've become a bit of a media entrepreneur, haven't you, of late? Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, well, thank you for raising it and it being the first, our first point of conversation. Yeah, during lockdown, I set up an online radio station called No Barriers Radio. Wanted to do something else because I've been a news broadcaster and broadcaster in radio and television. So I wanted to set something up that was going to be different than anything that's existing. Well, GB News has already kind of beat me to it on the news front. So as a radio station, it is very much an amplifier for music, culture, theatre, the arts, and it offers something completely different, but it's also a community interest company. So what that means is I personally, as Afghanistan in particular has been very much in the news, I then thought to myself, right, okay, I want to create voices and give opportunities as well to people that previously wouldn't necessarily be open to broadcasting and media. So I'm currently working with various organizations to work with serving soldiers who've been injured and everything else, to work very much in training them up and giving them an opportunity to be broadcasters on a professional radio station.
Wow, that's fantastic. That's brilliant. And did that come about because of lockdown itself, or was it something you'd always wanted to do?
It was something I'd always wanted to do. I mean, as a broadcaster, I've popped up variously over the years on a lot of BBC stations and other, diverse international stations as well. But I always, I'm always a voice, never an instigator, never anybody who sets an agenda, whether it's music, whatever the subject is, and radio is a great medium to do that and to help people along the way as well. I'm a great advocate for diversity, more women in media, well, particularly radio, actually. Young people as well, giving them opportunities, because I'm sure yourself, with your background, everybody wants real life world opportunities and experience, don't they? So it was bringing together everything that I've learned over the years and that I know, being a presenter, being a news broadcaster as well, the opportunities that people want. So obviously you have to have a core offering, it has to be a radio station, people need to want to listen to it. So the shows that were developed are of a good quality, but the opportunities that I feel now I'm in a position to offer with diversity, with people with additional needs, with, as I said, for example, working with the military, because like a lot of people, I've done the volunteering, I've done the helping, but I think, with people who've got PTSD, and let's face it, radio media is fun. It's a fun, exciting thing to be in. And I want to make it more accessible and more open to all different types of people. And that's what radio can do, on so many levels.
And
Yeah.
I think you might actually have answered what I was going to ask you next, because I think your the summation of what media is about, what radio is about. I was going to ask you, what do you think people have needed from media at this time? And maybe this is why you created the radio station. Is that right? Is that the two things that you put together?
Yeah, very much so. I mean, one of the things that I have, I guess, a profile and a lot of experience in is actually in health broadcasting. I've worked for the major broadcasters, again, the international independent ones as well. And I've certainly been busy. You know, I kind of moved away from it actually into different areas of broadcasting, but health drew me back, and COVID and everything else, what it flagged up, as you've just said, what do people now want from the media? And health broadcasting has completely summarized what people really want. You know, they want information, they want to be reassured, they want to be informed, they want to be, you know, educated. And that's why, you know, any, you know, fellow broadcaster, news journalist around health and the farmer, that's what people have always wanted. And one thing I have found, because I've done a lot of work with farmers, you know, the speaking, the hosting, the symposium, you know, everything else. But farmers have never, ever been as widely promoted or known by their names, the work that they do, how they do it. And now, you know, everyone who's been jabbed can say the name of the pharmaceutical company. You know, you can say, oh yes, I had the jab by Pfizer or AstraZeneca or whatever it may be. That hasn't ever been the case, you know, previously. So farmers are now, you know, speaking as a health journalist and health broadcaster, they're in a brilliant position now to inform, educate, you know, and really work with people, I think, more so than ever before. I mean, you know, in a way, the farmers have become almost, you know, the rock stars of the health world. That's what they are. You know, they're known by their name, you know, the Beyoncés, the, you know, the Gagas or whatever it is. And that's what's happened with health broadcasting and reassuring, educating, informing, giving truth as well. And I think that's what people want from media nowadays, don't they? And health media in particular.
I totally agree with you. I would like to ask your opinion, actually, as an insider. Do you think that the media's been successful in reassuring and, you know, the audience wanting information? Do you think they've done a good job?
Yes, I do actually, because it's been a breaking news story that's been going on for a year and a half. I mean, most stories, like, you know, any of the conflicts that I've covered, or, you know, any story that you have in the media, it has a finite amount of time, really, doesn't it? And you know, you report on it, you have breaking, you know, stories develop. But with health broadcasting, particularly during the pandemic, it's never been more important to educate, inform, but also really give the human stories behind this. Because let's face it, everyone to some degree or another has been affected, whether it's a jab, whether it's you've succumbed to COVID yourself, or now we're looking at the long COVID stories, and just in the news today, the effects on younger people in long COVID. So the health agenda is very much an ongoing story. So going back to your question, I believe that yes, they have done a good job, but I think in the future, all the aspects around COVID will be looked at closely: media, pharma, health, government, and that's the responsibility that you have, you know, to report, to educate, you know, to interact and reassure people. Yeah, so in answer to your questions, yeah, I do believe that's done, but who knows how the future will judge us.
Yeah, and of course you have to keep improving, right? So you can never be satisfied with what you've achieved. You've got to keep
Oh
working.
no, there's another story that's, you know, just round the corner. So yeah, and to be able to work in it and to be associated with health has actually been an amazing, you know, a real kind of career high for me as well, actually.
Fantastic. I mean, that's all really positive, but you must have done, as a presenter, you must have faced some challenges during COVID with your role. Are you able to share anything that you've faced in your work?
Yes, I mean, much like us now, for example, how we had moved away from, the straightforward studio setting, for example, with the camera, with the presenters speaking there. Again, yeah, I still think it's a great thing that we have now embraced new ways of working, new technology. And I personally hope that moving forward, because one thing that this kind of close, literally, seeing the whites of your eyes and somebody's home and everything, one thing it has shown again is a personal side to people. We've all seen the shots where high-powered people or whatever have got their cats like tapping along the keyboard, or like bonkers things are going on. So I think technology has thrown up some challenges, but if we can continue, using these interactions, these meetings, as a way to find out more about someone, being more personal, being more real, being more authentic, then personally, I think that that would be a really good thing that will have come out of the changes, the new ways of working. Um,
Fantastic.
do you think so? Would you
Yeah,
agree with
yeah.
that? Yeah.
I'll tell you what's happened for us for sure is that you connect with people that you probably wouldn't have done before, on different time zones. Whenever you want to, you can do, there's no limits now. In some ways you're working probably harder because you can speak to people in different time zones. But I actually
Yeah, that's
quite
true.
Yeah, I quite like the fact that you see people on a screen rather than just being on a telephone.
Yes.
Yeah, it does require more visits to the hairdressers, of course, but there's nothing wrong with that, right?
Botox with all the frowning and God knows what else, and constantly looking down.
Oh my goodness, yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so I think it's good, and I think it will carry on. I think there's been a lot of advantages. I mean, there's lots of challenges with technology, lots of learning, and it'll keep getting better, of course.
Yeah,
Um, Tell me, Annie, have you adapted your presenting style, your presentations much, and how, if you have?
yeah. Yes, I have. I mean, one of the a couple of new areas that have been, thrown up for me as a presenter, host, facilitator, has been that I've been in the lucky position where I've actually been and had the pleasure of working on some really big hybrid events. Now, previously, like, all the projects that you're involved with, you have an event, you have a speaker, they turn up, they say their speech, and in some ways, even on the biggest, grandest events, it was still, you still needed the interaction, and you may have got that previously, by touching an iPad or whatever. But I have done some events in the defence and the military sector as well, really big hybrid, high profile hybrid events. And also, you see, being brought in at the beginning of an event, it means that you can offer so much more than just being the presenter. I shouldn't say that, but who just turns up with the script and they say, oh, okay, can you do a bit of research? When you're brought in at the beginning of a project as a presenter, with writing skills, with, media skills, it means that you can offer so much more to a client. So the work and the project, the big, international kind of hybrid events that I've done in defence, BAE System, Team Tempest, another one was Shell and Deloitte. And it's interesting what you say, because certainly with Shell and Deloitte, they never would have had the resources and allowed employees the time to take the time off to go to a big event. It just wouldn't have been feasible, really, and we're both aware of that, through our different roles. So both Shell and Deloitte, for example, for the first time ever, they were actually able to assemble all of their employees. So that's like hundreds and hundreds of people, and they could all be there at an event. They could all be interacting. They can all see face to face their colleagues. They don't have to wait for that one day a year that they may or they may not go to the event on. And that's something that's really thrown up, and opportunities that I've been, working on for new sectors and very large clients who are actually taking advantage of that. I mean, do you think personally that that's something that will continue?
Absolutely. And I think because it's such a positive, the opportunity to have everybody together, as you said, which rarely would happen. And so that everybody's getting the same message, everybody's feeling the same, no one's feeling left out. That I think we need it more and more, because people having been working remotely, and some still are, you need that feeling of being part of something. You need
Yeah.
that communication. I totally agree with you. But you've actually written about this as well, haven't you? Can you tell us a little bit about the piece you wrote?
Yes, yes. Well, I wrote two features actually, because they were both in kind of lockdown features. So one was actually embracing and talking and discussing from a technical and a production point of view about broadcasting and presenting from both sides of it, actually being a presenter, but also how a corporate client, may actually, utilize this, you know, through my own experiences, not only as a broadcaster, but as I said, through being in a lucky position to work with such large companies. So it was talking about how you can use technology, for example. I mean, something that was, again, in the future, we'll laugh and, whatever we'll think about this time, from, an employability and technical point of view. But in the very beginning, for example, of events, we were using like kind of glass floors. So you would walk onto this virtual stage with everything that was going on and the technology and everything. But it was absolutely the scariest thing you've ever done. So, because you're walking around in high heels on a glass floor, presenting, talking, moving, and everything else. And you always, in the back of your mind, you're thinking, oh my goodness, am I going to be like falling over? And you've got this massive event, high profile and things. So that was just one aspect of it, really. So it's, how you interact with all the different technology. How do you do it? And again, for clients, how can they make the most of it? So the feature was around being a presenter, but also talking about the technology, how it's done, how it's utilized, and why a client, should actually get involved with doing it. What are the pitfalls? What are the advantages? So that was around the feature that I wrote. And I guess the other one was, although it seems a while ago now, the International Women's Day as well.
You tell us about that, actually, because you mentioned earlier that you feel that there are not enough women in broadcasting. In fact, not enough women everywhere. I mean, there's enough women in the world, but we don't seem to be appearing in all the right places. Tell us about that piece for International Women's Day.
Yeah, well, thank you very much for bringing that up, actually, Maria. Yeah, it was to talk. Women are in television, and it's great to see, saying that, it's great to see more women of various ages and different looks and styles and everything else. But women aren't represented in radio. And I think personally, there's a number of reasons why that is the case. And I wanted to increase, so I really wanted to get a lot more women interested, having a voice, using their voice, and maybe not so much, judged on your looks, for example, but on what you say and how you say it. And so that's one of the things that I'm very strong in, promoting more women and increasing diversity. So it has been, it has been very interesting, actually.
I mean, that's fascinating, actually, because the whole point about looks, you don't, I've got a great face for radio. And people say that, don't they? You've got a good face for radio, because it means they don't see you, right? They hear your voice. So
Yes.
surely it should be, I'm curious to hear from you what you think the challenges are for women in radio and why they're not. Because it's a voice. It's not about what you look like, is it?
No, it's not, but through my own kind of research and understanding and, being a broadcast journalist, and where I saw the gaps in the market, for want of a better word, it's because from a very young age, even kind of going back to school, really, girls are not encouraged. Like in a typical classroom, for example, and I wrote about this as well, so I, undertook some research. If boys and girls are equally speaking in a class, the boy, the young boy, young man, whatever, will actually be freely speaking. But in a lot of situations, the girl, the young lady or whatever, who's actually speaking is overtalked by the boy. And she will actually be encouraged to put her hand up to speak, whereas the boy, and this is kind of backed up by a lot of research. So from a young age, you as a girl, you're not really encouraged to use that voice. And women speaking, for example, that there's been lots of research on men and women in a meeting sort of situation, whatever the setup is. And if a woman actually speaks exactly the same time, the same amount as a man, it's assumed that she's talking more than the man is. And yet you can say, look, we've got the stopwatch kind of thing.
That's interesting because, of course, we have heard that in the media not that long ago from our colleagues in Japan that women talk too much, apparently. And it's interesting what you say. Only 25% of professional speakers are women,
Yes.
which is sad. And in some markets, it's worse than that. That's the average globally. And the other thing I wrote down while you were talking about this, because it resonates so much. Most questions asked at conferences are actually asked by men of the speakers. And
Yes.
I remember Gary Vee was doing a keynote speech, and he specifically said, I want the first question to be from a woman, because he understood that then more women would be prepared to put their hands up. So it's a huge topic there. But I'm sure that's not probably what clients are bringing you in, though, to help them with. And you touched on it a little bit earlier about what you do. Tell us what you do for clients when they book you, the whole process from beginning to end. How can you help them?
Okay, I mean, I have a number of areas of expertise as a keynote speaker, as a broadcaster and facilitator. So a client may say, for example, we would like Annie to, because she's been, a health broadcaster, we would like her to be involved with our health event or symposium or whatever it is, or roundtable. So it's using a mixture really of broadcast skills, but also tangible health broadcasting, expertise, and particularly, during the COVID and the pandemic reporting as well. I think I'm, very well qualified to give briefings every day, kind of thing. So to book me, I will work very much at the very beginning of the project, understanding exactly what a client wants to achieve. What would they really like from their host, moderator, speaker? Would you like someone who, not only offers expertise, but can also, guide managing situations? Can you ask the questions that you would like asked, but aren't being answered? So you can work very much with that. So it's the whole kind of gamut, really, much like our interview today. You did your research, I did mine, and we've kind of met in the middle, really, to create a broadcast which has goals for both of us. So to work with myself, for example, I can, deal with all aspects of this. I come from a broadcasting background. I also do media and, different communications training. So I can even work with the speakers, for example, to get the best from them. And so it's a win-win from everyone. And it's great to be at the beginning of a project, really, isn't it? I mean, it's the ideal situation, because then you can really understand what somebody really wants from their, from their speaker, host, keynote, facilitator. Because sometimes they just say, okay, here's your script. If someone wants you to do that, that's absolutely brilliant. But there's so much more that a professional presenter, host, and facilitator can bring to the party. And I think it's just a case of, being frank, and, I'd like to think I'm a fairly open, warm, approachable person. So you can just do, so much that a client would really like to achieve with their event or conference, or whatever it may be.
Yeah, brilliant. And I'm surprised how many people don't bring in a professional and experienced host to facilitate their conferences when they spend so much money on a conference and then they skimp. Because the difference between having a professional, it's like a professionally run, TV event in a way, isn't it? When you've got somebody who really understands what the audience is experiencing. And what I also love about what you're saying is you work as a member of the team. You come on board as part of the team to make them succeed from the beginning all the way through to the end. You're with them. And not, as you said, not all presenters do that, but not all of them are allowed to do that. So I'm glad that you encourage clients to do that. And I would say to all clients out there, bring you in early. Yeah?
Yeah, very, very much so. You can just get so much more from your talent, really. I guess that's probably the best way to describe it, because that's certainly what you're called in the media, for example. And it's just saying, what would you really like to achieve from this? And as I said in the beginning, we're talking now about Zoom meetings, for example. How to capitalize and get that interaction, get that buy-in from your audience, whatever your goals are, because previously it will have been a very, very standard presenter comes on, everybody says their speech and everything else, walks off. The interaction with the audience, maybe as time moved on, pressing your iPad or the hashtag and everything. But now what's been proved by technology is that I think people want more authenticity. They want to find out more. They want that interaction. We use so much of it in every aspect of our lives, online shopping, gaming, technology. It's all about personalization and, that personal relationship and making someone feel special and involved. And that is what I think events should be for the future moving forward. It can be a different model that is more human, it's more dynamic, it's more interactive, it's more personal. And I'm not saying, you could do that with every presenter or, whatever the goals are. But for a client, that is what people want. That's what I think the future will be now. And certainly, working with myself as a broadcaster, through my experience of, broadcasting and, current skills and what people want, that's what you can achieve. And that's what I think is kind of different. And that will be the future, or could be the future, of events, really. Do you think so, perhaps?
Annie, I hope so, because it sounds very exciting to me. So thank you. Thank you so much for spending some time with us and sharing a little bit of your expertise and wisdom on events. Really appreciate it. I hope you've enjoyed yourself.
Oh, it's been wonderful to talk to you, Maria, and thank you very much. I've loved this opportunity as well.
Super. And if you have enjoyed listening to the Speaker Show, please make sure that you rate it on Apple Podcasts. Keep up with future episodes on Speakers Associates website, that's speakersassociates.com, or on your favourite podcast app. And if you need Annie's help in your organisation, be sure to contact Speakers Associates in time to book her for your next event. Make sure you get her in early. Thanks so much. See you next week, and bye-bye for now.